Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to watch this brief introduction to Virtual Leader. This short video will now show you the basics on how to interact with Virtual Leader. First, when you launch applying the principles, you will only be able to access the first of 5 meetings. To access the next meeting, you'll need to click on the Advance button when you want to commit to your scores. Each scenario has a short introduction that gives you some of the background of the situation you are about to face and the goals for the task. Let's now look at a very simple scenario of Virtual Leader. This young man seated in front of you is Ollie. To get a short biography about him, just click on him. You will be seated directly across from him on this side of the desk. The name of your virtual character is Corey. For the sake of this demo, your character Corey will have a female voice, although you can also choose a male voice when you first log in. You will be meeting with him on your first day as his new manager. When you start Virtual Leader, the simulator is paused. When you are ready to start the meeting, you can click on the upper corner of the screen on the Resume button. But before you do, let's find out what's on the agenda by clicking on the ideas in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. You will want to learn more about the ideas that you can introduce. There's always the finish meeting idea in any scenario, and then, in this scenario, 2 other ideas: get Nordic cards and get my computer set up. There are also 3 ideas in the blank bars that represent ideas that I do not know. In this case, these are Ollie's ideas that he may or may not introduce based on how well you use and apply the leadership principles. You can also find information about each idea by clicking on the idea bar when in pause mode. This is very useful if you want to learn about the idea and the impact it will have on your business results, including financial performance, client satisfaction, and employee morale. We are going to start the simulation by clicking on the Resume button.
I finally put aside some time to do Rose's filing. Can I do that and get back?
Now, here Ollie introduces an idea. It is one of those hidden ideas that we talked about earlier on. You can pause Virtual Leader for a few seconds. You'll find yourself often doing that when you first start playing Virtual Leader, and that's okay. It is a very good thing to do. So, Ollie has introduced this idea, do filing today. In pause mode, I can click on it and learn a little more about it. Here's a couple of things that I learned. First of all, if Ollie passes this idea, I can no longer pass my 2 ideas. Well, what does passing an idea mean? This idea, do filing today, is a new idea. There is support for this idea, which is represented by the blue progress bar. The more Ollie and I will support the idea, the more the blue will fill up until it fills up the entire idea bar completely, and then that idea is passed. We can now support the idea by clicking on the green side of the opinion bar of the idea. We now have several options. We can talk to Ollie by mousing over him and then clicking on his own green zone to say something positive or aligning with him.
I think you really get it.
Or we can click in the middle to ask for a question or say something neutral.
Can you go into some more detail?
Clicking on the red zone is how we say something negative.
I need a lot more convincing.
We can click over here on the green zone of the idea opinion bar to increase the blue bar, in the red zone to decrease the blue bar. Or we can introduce one of the 3 ideas over here. Because we are using a directive leadership style, what I'm going to do is click on the red zone of the idea's opinion bar to push back on the idea, and also to let Ollie know I don't really like his idea very much. And then go over here and left click on one of these ideas to introduce it. I'm going to go over to the right top corner of the screen and resume Virtual Leader.
That seems like something we can push back for now. Excuse me for interrupting, but I'd really like to bring something else up. Ollie, Will says you're the one to process business cards. I want to play up our group to the rest of Nordic as soon as possible. I know how busy you are, but does it make sense to get that ball rolling today?
Notice that the yellow halo has moved from this idea, do filing today, to this idea, get Nordic cards. The yellow halo means that this is currently the active idea. You can click on it a second time to put a little more support behind it. Notice the body language of Ollie as I talk about this idea.
Will said that you're the department contact with publishing. If it makes sense, I'd like to get it done today.
Those are good thoughts. Let's switch gears for a minute, though.
Now Ollie is introducing another idea, which is finish meeting. I don't want to finish the meeting quite yet, so I'm going to click in the red zone to say something negative about the idea, and it'll go back to the agenda column in light gray. And then I'll click back on the green zone of the idea that I care about.
Hold on a sec, would you?
I think you really get it. What else should we be thinking about?
Let's go back to the business cards. I'll need 1,000 cards.
I'm going to listen to hear what Ollie feels about the idea. The dialogue in Virtual Leader is not about what is being said or vocabulary, but more about the intent or meaning behind the statements. Does a character support me, support the idea, oppose me, or oppose the idea? As you can hear, Ollie progressively becomes supportive of the idea. Because Ollie is also supporting the idea, though less enthusiastically than I do, I gain some power and my support for the idea grows stronger. So I'm going to support the idea too, watch the blue progress bar grow, and I'll click one more time to complete the idea and pass it.
I know what I think, but other people are more qualified than I am to decide. We might need more information before we can go ahead. I guess I could put off my other work and get you the necessary forms.
Can we prioritize this over your other obligations for today?
There are issues, sure, but I love this kind of problem. This afternoon was supposed to be for Rosa's filing, but that's not carved into stone.
I think it could work. Thank you so much, Ollie. That'll be a big help. Any other big issues?
Now I'm going to pause the simulation. We will notice a couple of things. First, we passed the idea to get my Nordic cards by having the blue progress bar fill up all the way. We had enough support to pass the idea, and once completed, we'll go to the right-hand side of the screen, in green. You will also notice that the other idea, due filing today, has now been preempted. By Ollie agreeing to get my Nordic cards, my business cards today, he will not be able to do the filing. We preempted that business decision. Once an idea is either passed or preempted, it cannot be reintroduced. The vocabulary, or dialogue, has been simplified so you can easily identify the statements as positive, negative, or neutral comments. You and Time will also direct the conversation in a similar fashion with supporting, opposing, or neutral comments. Quickly, you'll begin to interact with these virtual characters at a strategic level, learning how to monitor, direct, and influence a conversation and virtual meetings by applying the new core of leadership at the right time and in the right balance. So now, again, we have a couple of decisions to do. We can listen to Ollie and see what he is going to do, or we can introduce either the finish meeting or the computer setup idea. I'm going to finish the meeting right now. I'll start the simulation up again and then introduce the idea finish meeting by clicking on it.
I heard that there's a blood drive upstairs that's almost done. Do you want to head over there?
It's worth trying. I don't have a problem with it.
Ollie supports the idea. Now let's complete the finish meeting idea.
All right, let's be careful out there.
At this point, the meeting is done, and I will access the results screens for that meeting. The first screen is my overall score. The score is based on 1 to 100. Your goal is to get 90% or above for the total score here. This screen is broken into two parts, your leadership score and your business performance score, which is based upon the ideas that were passed and their influence on each of three business components: financial performance, customer satisfaction, and employee morale. Obviously, I did not do a very good job at my leadership, and my employee morale is pretty low, and will have an impact on my relationship with Ollie, as stated in the next screen. Ollie talks to the other members of your team and decides to write a note to your boss about their disapproval, but they decide not to send it. The third screen is one of the most revealing in Virtual Leader. It depicts the leadership style that you applied during that meeting. In this meeting, it shows that you spoke 50% of the time. Also, in this meeting, you only spoke towards the ideas, ignoring people. This seems to be a very impersonal meeting, and most of the time you supported the idea and objected only once to an idea. We can conclude that the style used was probably fairly directive. One of the many screens you see is a timeline on how the meeting evolved with the tension in the room, when ideas were introduced, discussed, passed, the amount of influence you had at any given point in the meeting. For example, As you were talking about do filing today, the tension with Ollie was getting lower, but as soon as you introduced the idea, get business cards, Ollie became more tense. Virtual Leader has stripped out much of the superfluous details, including some realistic details around a situation to zoom in on leadership. Sometimes you'll notice the body language is exaggerated. This is to let you know when the tension becomes unproductive in a room, either too tense or too relaxed. It's like an alarm telling you that you have reached a pretty extreme situation here. You can also try new leadership styles. You can step out of your comfort zone and try different ways of leading these virtual characters and teams. This will help you learn new, more effective ways to interact with difficult situations and dysfunctional teams. Good luck and lead well.